The movie begins with Katie working as a waitress at a New York City restaurant. She's also an aspiring model waiting to land her first modeling job. A fellow model, Sharon, tells her that in order to get any work, she's gonna have to update her portfolio. Katie asks her to recommend a good photographer, however, soon she realizes that it might cost a couple of grand per session, and she won't be able to afford it. Worried about how she's gonna get the money, she notices an ad for a free photography and modeling portfolio. She walks home to an old building and sees her neighbor Jason chasing a rat. At home, she works at her portfolio for a brief moment before calling the number given on the free photoshoot ad. A photographer named Ivan attends the call and asks if she's a model. He then tells her to send a picture of hers as it's a requirement for the promotional ad. Katie does as she's told. Moments later, she receives a text about the time and location of the photoshoot. The next day, Katie heads over to the location. There she meets 3 Bulgarian siblings: Ivan the photographer, and his 2 brothers, Nikolai and Georgi. Ivan asks Katie to change into a black sultry outfit and begin the photoshoot. Georgi, who's assisting Ivan, seems infatuated with Katie. After clicking a few pictures, Ivan urges Katie to take her top off since showing more skin is beneficial for her portfolio, but Katie disagrees. She believes they want to sell her naked pictures on the internet and storm out of the room. The next day, as she comes back for her morning walk, Georgie shows up at a place unannounced to give her the pictures. Katie tells him that she doesn't want them anymore, but he convinces her to take them. Georgie has a creepy vibe, so Katie instantly locks the door as he leaves. Back at the studio, Georgie is obsessed, staring at pictures of Katie. Later that night, as Katie is taking out the trash, Georgie sneakily enters into her flat. Katie heads back in, locks all the doors, and goes to bed. She wakes up to the sound of the camera shuttering and sees Georgie standing next to her bed clicking pictures of her. She asks him to leave, but Georgie is stubborn. She hits him with a taser gun, only to rush out of the flat, but he catches her in no time. He covers her mouth with his hand, but since she won't stop screaming, he hits her head to the ground multiple times until she becomes dizzy and stuffs her mouth with a cloth. Georgie grabs a knife to scare her and ties her up with a wire. That's when Jason hears her screaming and shows up outside her apartment. Georgie hides behind the door, and soon as Jason enters, he stabs him over and over as he falls to the ground. Jason is forced to witness Georgie assault Katie. Georgie rips her clothes off and proceeds to rape her. Moments later, he calls Ivan to tell him about the situation. Katie lies there screaming for help while Jason eventually dies. Ivan and Nikki arrive after a little while. There were plastic gloves to hide their identity. Georgie believes they could just clean up the place and go, but Ivan tells him that it's not possible since he killed somebody and his fingerprints are all over the place. Their plan now is to force-feed Katie some ketamine and get her fingerprints on the knife while Georgie wipes down everything that he touched. The scene then changes to Katie dazed in the back of a truck. She gains consciousness only to find herself in a basement, stripped naked and handcuffed to a pipe while Nikki rapes her. Moments later, Georgie enters the room and shoves Nikki away from her. Katie, still under the influence of the drugs, asks for water when Nikki pees on her, resulting in a fight between the 2 brothers until Ivan stops them. Before they leave, Ivan throws a dirty blanket on Katie and tells her to get some sleep. Katie screams and does all that she could to get away, but her efforts are in vain. After some time, Ivan throws a bucket of water on Katie and tells her to wash up, but she's reluctant. Georgie volunteers, but Katie won't let him touch her. She continues screaming, so Nikki gives her another dose of ketamine. Katie is now alone in the room with Georgie as he proceeds to wipe her down. Once he leaves to get some clothes, she manages to take the pill out by puking forcefully. So while Katie pretends to be unconscious, Georgie uncuffs her to get dressed. Katie manages to knock him down by hitting him with the water bucket and escapes through the window. She runs around the unfamiliar-looking place for help. She tries to stop a bunch of cars and approaches many people, but no one is willing to help her. Then she realizes she's not in New York anymore. Finally, a man who understands English stops his car for her. She tells him how she's been kidnapped and raped. Once she's in the car with the man, she asks him where she is. The man is shocked to see how lost she is and tells Katie she's in Bulgaria. However, Katie has no idea how she got here. Back at the basement, Nikki finds Gregory on the floor while Katie is nowhere to be found, so he rushes to tell Ivan. On the other hand, it turns out that the man who saved Katie is actually a detective named Kirill. He urges Katie to see a doctor, but Katie is so frightened that she won't let anyone touch her. She proceeds to tell him the events in detail, but Detective Kirill thinks that Katie's story is a bit far-fetched. Katie tells him that she won't answer any more of his questions, and she wants to go to the American embassy. Moments later, a blonde woman named Anna enters the room. It appears that she wants to talk to Katie alone and tells the detective to fetch them coffee. Anna claims that she runs a shelter and she can help her, but Katie is persistent about going to the embassy. Anna gains her trust by showing her scars similar to Katie's on the arm. She tells her to clean up before going to the embassy and takes Katie to her home. She walks her down the lobby until they reach a basement. Turns out it's the same basement Katie has been held hostage, and that Anna is actually Nick and Georgie's mother. Inside, she spits on Katie and slaps her for wanting to hurt her family, while Ivan locks Katie up once again. After some time, Valko, who is one of the family's late patriarch's friends, enters with a taser in his hand. Katie is solicited to Valko, who tasers her genitals and rapes her until she's bloodied, while Anna takes pleasure in Katie's ordeals. Once Valko leaves, Ivan enters the room and insults Katie. She proceeds to slap him with her bloodied hand. Enraged, he beats Katie up to a pulp. Later, Nikki rips her clothes off and then carries her to a box. Katie is then buried alive in the basement along with Valko's taser. Inside the coffin, Katie prays to God that she doesn't want to die like this until the bottom of the coffin breaks and she falls into the sewer below. Nikki tells Ivan that it's time for them to celebrate since they eventually got rid of Katie before they got back. However, Ivan believes it's too risky for them to ever go back. Katie wakes up inside the sewers naked and hurt. She drinks the dirty water and crawls around to find a piece of cloth and wraps it around her. She manages to light a fire with a lighter she finds in the trash and eats some rotten food. She gains enough energy to walk around the place until she finds a door that opens close to a church. Katie starts stealing food from the church and some clothes from the construction site nearby. One day, as she's stealing food from the church, she gets caught by Father Dimov. He soon realizes that Katie is a rape victim and allows her to take food, clothes, and a Bible. After spending a few days in the sewers, she goes out to the American embassy but leaves without going inside. Instead, she goes to the church and Father Dimov is pleased to see her. Katie is still terrified of someone getting close to her. That's when Father Dimov tells her that she can't keep running away from what happened. Katie tells him that she's not running and leaves. After looking at the pages Katie was reading from the Bible, Father Dimov gets a sense that Katie is planning to take revenge. Her first move is to break into Anna's house and steal some money. Once she gets her hands on some cash, she tries to figure out the whereabouts of the three brothers by following them around. One day, when Gregory is sitting at a cafe, she secretly puts a crucifix in his coffee and lures him into the sewers. Inside, she grabs his neck with a metal rod. Inside the church, Father Dimov talks to Detective Kirill about a woman who needs help. The detective instantly figures out that he's talking about Katie. The two men now want to help Katie in obtaining justice. On the other hand, Katie ties Georgie to the wall and tortures him with a pocket knife. She then smears feces all over his wounds to get them infected, causing a slow, painful death, quite similar to what he did to Jason. Later that night, Katie drugs Nicky and he goes to the bathroom. She beats him before violently drowning him in the toilet full of feces. Back at the sewer, Georgie is still alive. Katie grabs a stick and proceeds to torture him as they tortured her. The next day at church, Valko is attending a service when he sees Katie lurking around. He follows Katie to the sewers where she hits his head with a rock. He wakes up tied to a bed as Katie tases his genitals with his very own taser until she electrocutes him to death by passing a powerful current of electricity. The next day, Anna finds that someone broke into her house. She goes down to the basement and notices the hollow in the ground, implying that Katie is still alive. That's when Katie pushes her through the hollow and she falls into the sewers. Anna is trapped inside a box as she sees Georgie die a miserable death. Back at home, Ivan sees the open ground, realizing that Katie is alive. The scene changes to Detective Kirill telling Father Dimov the truth about how Katie approached him not long ago and how Anna took her from him. Ivan enters the sewers only to get captured by Katie. She ties him to a table and tortures him by crushing his testicles. However, Father Dimov and Detective Kirill are at Anna's house and they hear them screaming for help. During the torture, Ivan reveals how Anna is his stepmother, who herself was his father's rape victim. That explains Anna's sadistic behavior towards Katie. Moments later, Kirill arrives and points a gun at Katie, only to stop her from killing Ivan. That's when all of a sudden, Ivan attempts to strangle Katie and is shot dead by Kirill. He apologizes to Katie and lets her go. Anna is the sole survivor who gets arrested for aiding criminal activity. The final shot showing Katie walking towards the American embassy, and the movie ends. This is all for today. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you so much for watching.